Guess what? We are in our 4th week of our Who is Jesus series. I know, right? Time just flies by so fast. For the past few weeks, we have learned that Jesus is our healer, He is our teacher, and He is our friend. This week, we will hear about another important part of Jesus' life, God's Son. Our welcome question today is, how did people know Jesus was God's Son? One way people knew Jesus was God's Son was by the miracles that Jesus did. It showed others that He had power that could only come from God. Let's open up our case files and see what we can discover about these miracles and Jesus being God's Son. You got your notebook? Here we go. Case number 475. Here is our evidence. Our witness is Mark. The storm. On that day when evening had come, He said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took Him with them in the boat, just as He was. And other boats were with Him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling up with water. But He was in the stern. Who? Jesus. He was asleep on the cushion. And they woke Him and said to Him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And He awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey Him?" That's Mark chapter 4, 35 through 41. All right, let's look at our evidence report. Where was Jesus and who was He with? He was in a boat, right, with the disciples. What were the disciples afraid of? A great windstorm. How did Jesus respond? He woke up and He said, "Peace, peace, be still, wind." And guess what? The wind was still and the sea was still. What did Jesus ask His followers after that? Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? Come on, guys. Jesus was on the boat. Why are you afraid? Jesus is with you. That's what Jesus was saying. I'm here with you. Why are you afraid? Do you not know who I am? What questions did the disciples ask? Who is this that even the wind and the sea obey Him? They were like, wow, that's a miracle. Who is Jesus really? How did that show Jesus was God's Son? He can speak and He can even control the wind and the sea, right? The weather. No one else can do that. That's a miracle that only God can do, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, we have another case. Case number 475, evidence 2. The big meal. We're going to be talking about food here. Our witness today is John. After this, Jesus went across Lake Galilee. Many people followed Him, of course, right? They followed Jesus wherever He went because they saw the miracles He did and He healed the sick. Jesus went up on a hill and there sat down with His followers. It was almost the time for the Jewish Passover feast. Jesus looked up and saw a large crowd, coming toward Him. He said to Philip, "Where can we buy bread for all these people to eat?" Jesus actually asked Philip to test him. Jesus already knew what he had planned to do. Philip answered, Someone would have to work almost a year to buy enough bread for each person here to have only a little piece. A whole year, guys, for one person to have one little piece. Another follower there was Andrew. He was Simon Peter's brother. Andrew said, "Here is a boy with 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 little fish." But that is not enough for so many people. Jesus said, "Tell the people to sit down." This was a very grassy place. There were about 5,000 men who sat down there. Then Jesus took the loaves of bread. He thanked God for the bread and gave it to the people who were sitting there. He did the same with the fish. He gave them as much as they wanted. You heard that right, as much as they wanted. They all had enough to eat. When they had finished, Jesus said to his followers, "Gather the pieces of fish and bread that were not eaten. Don't waste anything." So they gathered up the pieces that were left. They filled 12 large baskets with the pieces that were left of the barley loaves. Guys, there were leftovers. Wow. Okay, let's see. Oh, the people saw this miracle that Jesus did. They said, "He must truly be the prophet who is coming into the world." Jesus knew that the people planned to come and take him by force and make him their king. So he left and went into the hills alone. All right, our evidence report. What was the problem? I think I know what the problem was, right? There were some people that were hungry. The people, the crowd, the large crowd were hungry, and there was not enough food to feed them. What did Jesus ask Philip and why? He said, "Where can we buy bread for all these people to eat?" Jesus was testing him because he already knew what he was gonna do, right? Jesus already knows what he's gonna do. He tests us like, okay, what do you think's gonna happen? Do you trust me? Do you believe I'm God's son? How did the disciples respond? They found a boy, right? And he had 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish. But these were little fish. What did Jesus do? He took the bread and he took the 2 little fish and he blessed it. And guess what? He gave it out to everybody. And they had enough to eat, right? Not only that, they had leftovers. Have you ever had leftovers from a meal and you was able to eat some later? That's just great that you don't have to go cook and prepare anything else. You got leftovers. All right, how did that show Jesus was God's son? Well, again, to us humans, us people, we could never perform anything like that. That was a miracle, and it's not a miracle without God. Okay. Let's see. Let's recap. Today, we learned a lot about who Jesus is, right? God's son. Jesus showed us that he was God's son and had his Father's power by healing physical illness, raising people from the dead, feeding the 5,000, and even forgiving people's sins. There are things we haven't seen today. But from the past few weeks of our investigation, Jesus could do incredible things because he came from an incredible dad. Who's that? God. That's right, God the Father. You know, as children, we all get our genes from our parents. Jesus had genes from his father too, his power. It was easy to see from Jesus' actions that his power was from something greater than his earthly parents. It was from God. It helped people to see and believe that Jesus was truly God's Son, sent to save the world. 1 John chapter 4:10 says this, "True love is God's love for us, not our love for God. God sent his Son to die in our place to take away our sins." Think about it. If Jesus had no special powers and just went around telling people he was the Son of God, do you think people would believe him? Probably not. A lot of people, false prophets, had tried to do the same thing. Jesus was the real deal, God's own Son. How cool is that, right? All right, so in John 14:10, this is what it says. "Don't you believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work." Jesus was God's Son doing God's work. That's awesome, right? Jesus is God's Son. Well, guys, let's see. Oh, our memory verse, can't forget that. 1 John 4:10. "True love is God's love for us, not our love for God." Remember that? God sent his Son to die in our place to take away our sins. Well, guys, next week we're going to learn about the specific job that Jesus came to do. So, I guess it's time for me to go. I guess I will see you next time. Bye.